that I welcome this kind of examination because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
We can make our beloved country the source of all the dreams and the opportunities that she was missing.
Welcome to the American Idiots Podcast, the show where we take the most divisive headlines and put them to the debate with our diverse group of hosts. Join us as we leave no story uncovered and spare no politician. Good evening and welcome into the American Idiot Show. I am Money Mike Carnahan, and of course I want to ask you guys all, please like, comment, share, subscribe. YouTube, same thing, vice versa. Hit the notification bell on YouTube to be notified when we upload, which is every Monday night at 7:30 to 9:30. So yeah, there you go. Make it easy for yourself. With that being said, I'm going to be joined tonight. We're going to be a little bit short tonight, but I'm going to be joined by the Manny Hispani this week. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing really good. I've been really busy with work, but
I understand
that. Had time to get a haircut.
Actually, crazy thing happened this week. So I was working for my company's Phoenix site for the past 8 months, roughly, since about August or the end of August. And Thursday, they up and told us, hey, the program we're working on is sunsetting. So I'm back with my old job starting today. So that was a lot of stress in and of itself, moving back to what we call pre-sales here with my job. So, a lot of fun.
That can't be too bad.
No, not at all. Actually, it was once I actually got back, it was a lot more nerves of, can I still do what I did before? But once I got back today, I fell right back into what I do every time when I was there. So, it is what it is. It's one of those things that I was nervous for nothing. Mine
is mostly the travel that's involved with one of the current jobs we're doing.
You've been doing a lot of traveling, man.
It's a dentist office in Stamps, Arkansas.
Oh, man.
2 hour drive there, 2 hour drive back. Yeah.
You want to talk about middle of nowhere, Stamps, Arkansas. What's that, population 50?
I want to say it's like 300.
Okay. A little bit better than what I thought. I mean, shoot, I talk crap, but I actually am from Gravel Ridge, which for anybody who knows this area, Gravel Ridge is now Sherwood. It's basically Jacksonville Cutoff Road. So, yeah, definitely a lot of these small towns here in Arkansas. But let's get right on into it. And I have some questions here about my fellow movement people. After reading this headline and hearing some things about it, Mario Gonzalez had a run-in with the police, and we haven't heard much about it. But we do have the story from KTVU Fox 2 in San Francisco.
Late today, Alameda police released body camera video showing the death of a man in their custody. And now that man's family is saying he died like George Floyd.
My family and I saw the footage, and we know what really happened.
The hour-long video shows the interaction between Mario Gonzalez and Alameda police officers. Hello again, everyone. I'm Julie Hayner.
And I'm Frank Somerville. Officers had responded to 911 calls about Gonzalez, who appeared to be under the influence and in need of help. They tried to put him in handcuffs after talking to him, but he resisted, and they all then fell to the ground. It appears from watching the video that the officer put his knee on Gonzalez's back, not on his neck. They also told him, hey man, you've just had too much to drink. Calm down and stop kicking. After about 8 minutes on the ground, the man became unresponsive. Police rolled him over and immediately started doing chest compressions. Our crime reporter Henry Lee tells us the family is calling the death of Gonzalez a murder.
Do me a favor, Mario. No, I didn't do nothing. Mario, please don't resist us, okay?
This is Alameda police body cam showing officers trying to detain Mario Gonzalez. Neighbors had called police saying he appeared to be on drugs.
Put your hands behind your back, okay?
Within a few moments, there's a struggle as officers put him to the ground near South Shore Center. Gonzalez later died. The cause of his death is under investigation.
Say his name! Say his name! Mario Gonzalez did not have to die.
My family and I saw the footage, and we know what really happened.
Earlier Tuesday, Gonzalez's brother and mother and their supporters lashed out at Alameda police outside the department.
They don't have the right to kill him. We humans, I feel so mad. I feel sad.
The family has viewed some body camera footage showing what led up to Gonzalez's death.
Alameda police officers murdered my brother Mario.
He said his brother did not die of a medical emergency during a scuffle, as police have said. He said his brother did not attack the officers.
The footage shows officers on top of Mario while he was face down on the ground. They had their weight on his head and his back. He was complying, and they continued to pin him down with their weight.
The family says Gonzalez was restrained for at least 5 minutes. Officers were called about a man who appeared to be under the influence and was possibly suspected of stealing liquor from Walgreens.
For that, Mario is paying with his life. It's outrageous.
Family's attorney, Julia Sherwin, says Gonzalez's final moments were excruciating.
Having his life pressed out of him as he was asking the officers not to do that. From his perspective, this would feel like torture.
3 officers have been put on paid leave. Their actions are under investigation by the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, the DA's office, and an attorney hired by the city of Alameda. Henry Lee, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Okay, so let's talk about this one here. Interesting that, I will, full transparency, this is the first I'm seeing of the video or anything like that. This is really the first it's not the first I'm hearing of it. I did hear something about it late last week. But with that being said, let's start, before we get into the video, let's start off with why is it that it does appear that, this one isn't getting as much traction as George Floyd. I think there's an easy answer hanging in the air, but I want to look at another possible scenario here and ask you if you think it is this. I think it may be more fatigue from the people that are doing this, as far as the protesters and things like that. So with George Floyd, when that happened about a year ago, you saw, every other post on my timeline was, Black Lives Matter, justice for George Floyd, things like that. We're not getting that with this. Do you think it's because we got the Chauvin verdict the way we want? People are just like, okay, cool, that's cool, I'm out, Do you think that's what we're getting? Or do you think this is literally something that, like I said, there's an elephant in the room? Is it because it wasn't a black man?
I don't think that it was publicized as much as George Floyd's was.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you just don't.
I don't think that it had near the coverage. So you have to look at Media America about that. Why did they decide that this wasn't newsworthy?
Absolutely. So I want to look at this video here. I haven't seen the full hour. Have you seen the body cam other than what we just watched?
I have not.
I will relent. In this case, it appears that the knee went to the lower back. All I've seen, it appears that the knee did go to the lower back and not the neck. Or at one point, it looked like he may have had one on his shoulder blades. Did you see anything in that video that screams injustice, I guess I would ask?
They got to find a better way.
I completely agree with that. I mean,
they take the hands and arms and they commit to tackle people.
Did they tackle? That's another thing. Did they tackle him or did he fall? Because it sounded like at first they said he fell, and then in the video clip, it sounded like she said there was a scuffle. Did he tackle him or did he fall?
Well,
there's a lot of questions.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
Got them trying to gain the upper hand, and one of their maneuvers is to get them on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But while you're holding the arms or the hands, it's hard to support yourself as you're going down.
Absolutely. And I mean, he could have banged his head, which I would say that they'd be liable for that.
The other thing is the same thing that I pointed out with George Floyd. You had several people on his back.
Yes.
Yes, Chauvin was the one that was on the neck. But you had other people that were compressing their weight onto his body.
You know, and that is something, like I said, 5 cops for basically what amounts to me, it sounds like a drunk tank call. Gonna go toss this dude in the drunk tank. I understand you need to cuff him, but
do you? Because it depends on where he's at. I mean, was he in his front yard?
That's a good point, too.
Was he at a neighbor's house who had invited him there? Was he somewhere he should have been? Because one of the things that I know that police officers will do, will tell people to leave a bar, and then as soon as they get outside, they get arrested for public intox.
Preach.
So, I mean, you're the one setting it up. I watched an auditor video today about a gentleman that was walking home in the snow in just a t-shirt, and police were called to do a welfare check on him. They approached him. He said he was fine, and they continued to harass him. At the point he says that he's fine, he's going home, it's no longer a welfare check. And the fact that they continue to pursue him for no reason at all, won't tell them what they're doing. And they keep saying, we're trying to help you, but he's already refused it. So now you're just harassing.
Absolutely.
They wound up arresting him for being in the middle of the road, but he only went to the middle of the road trying to get away from the cops. So, I mean, they're the ones that put him in that situation.
My goodness, that is special to say the least.
And it comes down to the fact that police are out to get your information. Period.
Agreed. And
they
you know,
want to be able to run your name, run your license, run whatever they can to see if they can get you on anything else.
It's interesting. I don't know. Like I said, this is something that I'm still learning about. It looked like he may have been homeless just based upon the scene around. I don't know if you saw the scene around where he was, but there was like, it looked like basically a homeless camp. There was stuff, scattered about that open area that he was in. That's interesting to me though, because when you brought that up about did he belong there, I thought about it, and I believe they actually said neighbors called the police because they were worried about him. They thought that he was on drugs or something.
Right. So then you get to looking at what were the neighbors seeing that they felt they needed to call the police.
Right. Absolutely.
So, the police could have been called for a legitimate reason. At the end of the day, whenever you were putting your weight on somebody, and you can see he's not in the best shape, so he's already dealing with.
Right, he's a big guy.
Yeah, you're already dealing with fat and stuff that's constricting his airway, his lungs and stuff. We've talked about with the George Floyd case. We had mentioned that getting buried up into sand and stuff. It can constrict your ability to actually inhale, draw in breaths.
Absolutely. So,
I mean, the same thing is there whenever you have another person on top of you, let alone 3, 4, or 5.
And once again, for something as simple as a drunk tank call, why do you need 5 cops? That's another thing.
Right.
Like they need to Sherwood, where I am, they're one of the worst about this. For a standard traffic citation, they come up with like 3 cars. Like, bro, don't you have something better to do? Come on now.
No, that illegal lane change was the most pressing.
Right. I mean, in Sherwood it may be because there's not too much crime here, but still, I mean, it really is ridiculous to see some of this stuff that they accomplish. And in this case, I will say, just based on what I've seen, Do I think that it is as heinous as George Floyd? Absolutely not. Could it have ended in ways other than Mr. Gonzalez passing away? Absolutely. Do I think the cops contributed to him passing away? From what I've seen, yeah. They didn't de-escalate the situation. If anything, they escalated the situation to the point where they fall down and they feel like they have to restrain Mr. Gonzalez.
Right.
I mean, let's be honest here. And I want to kind of hear the reason why he started scuffling, because they're talking to him and they're saying, Mr. Gonzalez, just let us put your hands behind your back. He's a big dude. First thing I'm going to think of with that is big dudes kind of need some help with the cuffs, because they can't, that's not a comfortable position for them.
Right. Number two, you got to look at it. Okay. If police were called to do what was basically a welfare check because they thought he might have been on drugs, that's totally different. At the point they decided to arrest him, I wonder what they were putting him in cuffs for, or detain him. I wonder what they were putting him in cuffs for, because that's no longer a welfare check.
Another good idea, did they do a field sobriety test on him before they decided to do this?
And you can't do a sobriety test unless they are breaking the law.
Right. I mean, I will say this. Just based on the little snippets of hearing him and then back and forth from what it did sound like he was intoxicated. Does that mean once again that he should have lost his life? Absolutely not. But it did sound like he was intoxicated. So yes, I guess cause and effect, that's where they go to arrest him for public intox. I'm assuming that's how it works. I don't know, but I'm assuming that's how it works. But once again, it didn't have to go that far by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that it's getting to the point where it's just sad that we have to say it didn't have to go that far. Not, hey, you're a bastard for, kneeing on a dude's neck for 9 minutes. Now it didn't have to go that far, dude. Like, chill.
Right. I mean, I can tell you this right now. Everybody who watches the show has most likely seen my daughter. When you think about it, if I was to put a bear hug on her, how long would it really take for me to suffocate her that way?
Absolutely.
That's basically what you get whenever you have multiple bodies squeezing down on your back as you're laying on the ground.
Well, and I mean, the thing I've always the thing that's always kind of mystified me is they've talked about how, in this case, they tried to say that he had a health emergency. And in Floyd, they tried to say he had a health issue. Here's my thing. Cause and effect. The health issue would have never happened had you not taken it to that level.
Right.
Still, your culpability. That's my thoughts on that. I think it's absolutely asinine that we're here where we have people, maybe this dude was on drugs. Why didn't you take him to a treatment facility? Like,
right.
Come on now. I'm not for, the social workers and all that stuff replacing police people. I think in certain cases with mental health issues and stuff, maybe it might be helpful to at least have somebody they can talk to on the phone while the police show up or something. But in this case, these training, it goes down to that for me.
Right.
And while we're talking about this, hopefully we're going to get some change here. Representative Ilian, I think is how you pronounce your name, Ilian Omar, introduced a new police accountability legislation, and we have a story on it from KARE 11.
Representative Ilhan Omar says,
I think.
Yeah.
Is it going to play?
Representative Ilhan Omar says police killings need federal oversight in the same way the NTSB investigates plane crashes.
It's an existing agency. It's one that works, and we believe that our criminal justice system needs an agency like that.
Omar's bill would establish the National Police Misuse of Force Investigation Board, made up of 8 bipartisan members appointed by the president. The agency would investigate police killings and use of force and could have findings provided to juries.
This is going to be a proactive board.
The board could also give recommendations and withhold grant funding if agencies don't follow them.
Trying to make sure that these agents of the law are taking their oath serious.
But when Omar filed this bill last December, it did not get any Republican co-sponsors.
In theory, is a solid proposal, but from a practical standpoint, unfortunately, it's not very realistic.
George Mason professor Lori Robinson, who co-chaired a policing task force under President Obama, questions how the board could oversee 18,000 local agencies.
I don't know how, from a legal standpoint and constitutional standpoint, perhaps, that a federal agency would be able to delve in and require a local agency to turn over evidence.
We did reach out to the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association to see if they have a stance on this, but they did not. In Minneapolis, I'm Danny Spiewak, KARE 11 News.
Omar says she has received some interest from colleagues in the Senate, but so far nothing has been introduced in that chamber.
So, Omar, from my understanding of this piece of legislation she's introducing, is asking for a federal oversight committee on these police brutality claims. And she wants it to oversee the entire country. Like the George Mason professor there said, I believe that this would become a logistical nightmare. And this may be the Republican in me. Small government should be handled by the states. I still think it should be a civilian board that you go in front of, the people that you're there to protect and serve, that decide whether you accurately protected and served the community. They represent the community that you live in and police in. I think that's the best idea for this situation, is to have something like that. I don't mind that she's thinking. I think that she should go back to her colleagues, though, in her constituents, though, and float this idea on a more state basis.
I hear what you're saying, but to my knowledge, there's already a department basis with internal affairs, is there not?
Yeah, absolutely. But my thing with internal affairs is we've seen this for years where they'll cover stuff up.
Well, switch them out. Like you said, make it more state-based instead of department-based. And then have your oversight committee over internal affairs.
Yeah, true. I mean, and even why aren't we using like maybe even just like the House of Representatives or the Senate for something like this? I mean, maybe that's stupid to think about that, but like these are our people we elected to represent us. Why not?
Right.
It's just, I don't have a crystal clear answer for this. But are you telling me that every situation, Mr. Gonzalez, for example, in Atlanta, I didn't know about it till early this week, late last week. You're telling me that everybody in the country it'll make enough noise? Where's the threshold that it's going to get on this federal committee's radar? Could you imagine how many calls that this place would receive to have them look at stuff like this every single day?
Right.
Not just legitimate calls, but illegitimate.
That's why I'm saying do it state-based with internal affairs. Have them look at things first, and if it warrants more action, then kick it up to this committee. True. Absolutely. If internal affairs looks at it and it's really a non-issue, then it gets dismissed.
Well, and knock on wood, hopefully, even though I just bashed them, knock on wood, hopefully we're about to see a little bit of accountability with the policing program, just based on what we saw at the Chauvin trial, where the chief of police and the other cops did come out against Mr. Chauvin and testify against him. Well, hopefully we're not going to see these people.
Right, but how many months later are we talking about another death due to police leaning on a suspect on the ground?
Absolutely. I mean, 11 months later? But I mean, not even that. Like we said last week, it seems like every single week we're coming up with a new story that we have to talk to about a police officer in some state, in some area. You know, last week was Micaiah Bryant. The week before, I forget who we talked about the week before, the 13-year-old boy in Chicago.
Yeah.
I mean, every week it's coming at us, and it's just, it's a problem that needs to be addressed. I just don't think it can be addressed.
Why didn't that gain more traction?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of
there hasn't been anything said about it at all this week.
And I'll tell you where I think the problem lies. I think, unfortunately, even though you kind of talked me out of this, and I completely agree with what you said now, I think the gun is going to be the biggest problem for that young man. And I hate that for him. It should have never happened, but I think the gun's going to be the biggest problem for that young man to get justice in his case.
And I disagree. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to go based on what you see.
Absolutely. I would agree. Like I said, I mean, you completely changed my thinking on that case because, you know, hey, he had the gun. I understand the situation. The officer wasn't a dick afterwards, you know, so on and so forth. But now that, you know, after talking to you on the show a couple of weeks ago about it, and you explaining, you know, hey, obviously he had thrown the gun. It wasn't in his hands. Why did he fire? I got to doing a little bit more deeper thinking about it. And obviously you're right. I just feel like.
Right. And it's like when the officers went there, all they knew was a gun had been fired.
Right.
They see two people take off two separate directions. So he didn't know for a fact that the person he was chasing had a gun.
Right.
Suspected there's a good chance that he does, but didn't know for a fact.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And as he's chasing him, telling him to stop, telling him, you know, I'm the police. When he does stop and turn around, the first thing he does is fire.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. He didn't say get on the ground. He didn't say anything. He pop, 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 pop.
Right.
And I mean, we'll go back to last week, Micaiah Bryant. I know me and you disagree on that one. I still think something could have been done to prevent it from escalating that far. I know me and you disagree on that one, though, because you said, you know, what would have happened if one of them got stabbed and him taking her to the ground.
I don't believe there was enough time to think out the process.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean,
feel that he turned, saw somebody with a knife about to stab somebody else, and acted.
I'm all for this kind of legislation to be enacted. Like I said, I think we're both in agreement. It needs to be on a more local level, just from a logistical standpoint. I like that she's thinking this way, but you know, it needs to be handled on a local level so that logistically you can actually get something done. I feel
like you said, Internal Affairs has been around for how long, and they've swept things under the rug and have taken up for their officers hidden actual evidence and stuff like that to make sure that their friends on the force don't get anything thrown at them. That's probably why they're looking at doing it government-wide instead of statewide, or you know, something more local.
Right. But I feel like there's a couple things. I feel like you'll lose cases in the shuffle of, you know, the mass, you know, that these people will get buried underneath. And, you know, I feel like that's the biggest one. I feel like you won't have enough people to work, like they said in the news story, to work 18,000, I believe they said, units in the country. That's astronomical. The amount of people that they would have to hire a hell of a workforce to be able to do that. I mean, maybe if they could assign a person a state or something. Okay, you handle this state. Okay, you handle this one. But you know, at that point, it'll become one person's decision, and I'm not sure I like that necessarily as much as I like a panel. But you know, we don't always get what we want.
Right. Well, like I said, if you do internal affairs as a state level instead of just a department level, that puts more eyes on some of these smaller places, and then have them kick up things that they think are really questionable.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
a good way to do it. And then, of course, have the government level, national level, I guess we'd say, do random audits.
Yeah.
So that
I mean, that wouldn't even be a bad idea.
They pull cases here and there.
That wouldn't even be a bad idea, to be honest with you. Okay, so our new injection into the Russia, China, USA aggression triangle here is Russia's new space missile, and we have a story from the Sun. Apparently, Putin's pretty proud of this missile.
Задний левый зафиксирован.
Okay, so without context,
what was that?
Russia training video, for crying out loud. But no, just looking at this context, Vladimir Putin says that missile that we saw them test firing there can blast any space missile from the U.S. to smithereens. So I'm looking at this, and I automatically think back to Space Wars or Star Wars back in the 80s with President Reagan. And he put the satellites in orbit to deal with a situation that may arise from Soviet aggression. It may be time to look at that again and update that situation because, you know, if they find a way around it after 40 some odd years, we may want to look at updating that situation then. That's the whole point of Star Wars, wasn't it? To intercept missiles?
Yes, advance notice for missiles that may have been fired toward the U.S. from several different areas, including Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I'm seeing, though, is while we've still been putting satellites in orbit, it goes back to this whole Chinese-based technology system that we're using. We purchase so much from China, and if they do indeed have kill switches on those things, we're sitting ducks.
That's an interesting point because, you know, while we're talking about space and these things we're putting up in orbit, the International Space Station, think about how much of that is just China. I've seen videos. I remember one night I just went on a tangent on YouTube and started watching videos of the International Space Station. And these astronauts would walk you through and they'd be like, oh, yeah, that whole wing down there is China. And I'm like, damn. Like, what would happen if they just all of a sudden said, screw it, we're going to cut our section off and y'all are screwed? Like, damn. These are situations that are potential big issues for
the United States has become too dependent on other countries' technology.
I agree.
Instead of the U.S. creating its own technology.
I would agree. I think, you know, especially with consumer electronics and everything, I think once that boom started with Japan, China, all that good stuff, and they were able to make them so cheaply, I think the U.S. kind of gave up. I think the U.S. kind of said, you know what, screw it. we're going to let them do it cheaply and we're going to buy it cheaply. Whereas,
Right.
if we could make it here, it may cost a little bit more, but, hey, cool. Have some tech companies over there in Silicon Valley start working on technologies like things that we need for everyday use, or even, for the military. Let's not outsource things like that anymore.
Yeah, we definitely need to bring a lot of that stuff back home.
It's honestly laughable to think that we did outsource some of that stuff to begin with, especially with defense and everything. It's kind of laughable to think we would trust somebody else with our defense. That's a problem. And not think it would come bite us in the backside for sure.
Right.
We make some decisions that are some real head scratchers.
That's government for you.
Yeah, that's true. I used to say
America nowadays. I mean, people are more into convenience than hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The cheapest, I sometimes, depending on what it is, I may look at brand, but cheapest is probably going to be my most bought option. Cost is probably the number one buying motive for anybody looking at consumer electronics or any of that stuff that would be manufactured in one of these Asian continents or countries. Would be, convenience, cheapness, how easily it is to get, and that's, what we have to fight against. Definitely though, as far as this, missile, I'm not going to say I'm just terrified of it. It's not Sputnik in the 60s, but it's something that
originally when I first saw the headline, yes, it was a concern that, hey, if they've got something, because they're saying it can go like 20 times faster than a bullet.
Yeah.
I was thinking, wow, that could be a really powerful weapon against us. But as they've talked about it, they're looking more as it being a defensive thing and not an offensive thing. So.
Which, I mean, let's be honest, they can claim it's defensive until they get into a conflict, and then all of a sudden, oh, shoot, we accidentally fired one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let's be honest. There's a little bit of coy play in there when they claim stuff's for defense, but, we'll figure it out as we go. That's the unfortunate thing with government and wars and stuff like this. You figure it out as you go. Every day is a new challenge. Okay, so next up we have 3 individuals are being charged with a hate crime in correlation with the Ahmaud Arbery shooting. And we have a story from Reuters on it.
U.S. prosecutors on Wednesday charged 3 white men with federal hate crimes and attempted kidnapping in the fatal shooting of Ahmaud Arbery, a black man who was gunned down while out jogging last year. The Justice Department said that former police officer Gregory McMichael, his son Travis, and William Roddy Bryan were each charged with 1 count of interference with rights and 1 count of attempted kidnapping. Travis and Gregory McMichael were also charged with using firearms to carry out acts of violence in last February's fatal shooting, which lawyers for Arbery's family have likened to a lynching. Attorneys for the McMichaels were not immediately available for comment. Bryan's attorney said he was disappointed by the case and said his client has committed no crime. The new charges come as the Biden administration has stepped up enforcement of federal civil rights laws. All 3 men already face criminal trials in the state of Georgia on charges of murder and assault, but a timeline hasn't been set. The McMichaels told police they suspected Arbery was involved in a string of neighborhood burglaries when they spotted him running in the street, then chased him down to make a citizen's arrest. Bryan captured the killing on video, then handed the footage to investigators before it went viral on social media last May. The footage showed Arbery jogging down a 2-lane street before being confronted and shot by 2 armed men who stopped their pickup truck in his path. Bryan's lawyers have insisted he was merely a witness to the crime. Arbery's case, along with the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis last May, fueled protests against racial injustice and police brutality across the country.
Okay, so in this case, I absolutely am thrilled to see the federal government working and doing something good. These gentlemen, these are the gentlemen, in my opinion, that this hate crime bill and these, these laws that were made and passed to, these are the guys that were there to stop it, or were there to stop. The reason why the laws are in place are for people just like these three gentlemen that are being charged. Of course, one of them's lawyer is saying, oh, well, he was just there. He was just a witness. Why didn't he stop it? He's just as culpable, in my opinion.
You've got people that are a witness to something, and when there's firearms, they're not going to put their lives in danger. So I'm not going to ding him on why didn't he stop it. What I am going to ding him on are you're looking at a father and son who had weapons, and you had another person who was pushing him in that direction. Stopped the car, got out of the car. So in my opinion, he was a part of this whole situation. Not to mention, if I'm not mistaken, they have linked telephone records to him being contacted. And they were actually in the process of trying to block him in. So
all under the guise of a citizen's arrest for what?
Right.
Who knows? But
well, the claim was that they found him. He was spotted at a construction site where materials had been stolen before.
Right.
So that's what the initial claim was, that they have found a guy who was on a site potentially stealing stuff.
And that's a problem, that anything like that. And it kind of, this case kind of harkens back a little bit for me to oh Lord, I was just sitting here thinking, don't forget the young man's name, the gentleman, Trayvon. It harkens back kind of to Trayvon for me, because I feel like, and I haven't heard the telephone conversation. They called the police, right? They called the police.
I believe so, yes.
Did they not tell them, hey, stop, don't engage, don't do anything, leave them the F alone?
Yes, they did. And they continue to pursue.
And I mean, that's the thing. Like, these people, like I said, these are the epitome of why we have these laws in America. These people saw, in my opinion, and I will not budge off of this one, they saw a black man running in a construction site, and they saw an opportunity. And it's unfortunate that we have these people in our world, but in my case, 100%, I will say this was racially motivated.
Yes, I agree.
I mean,
100%. I'm glad to see that not only are they being charged with the regular crime, but they are adding that hate crime legislation to it too.
Absolutely. And people, in the long run, does it really matter if they do get them on the murder? Probably not, because these people probably won't ever see the light of day again. They probably will end up facing the needle at the end of the day. But, or at least two of them. I don't think the third one is, even though I said he's culpable, I don't think he's as culpable as the two that had the weapons in their hands.
Right.
He probably will receive something like life with possibility of parole. But these two are definitely needle candidates for me, at least.
And it's really gonna depend on the jury. I mean,
yeah, true.
How they push that. Whenever you have stuff like that come through, is sentencing done solely by the judge, or is sentencing done by jury?
I'm not sure in Georgia how it works. I know here in Arkansas, though, it really does rely upon the jury, because there's three sections to a death penalty case, at least in Arkansas. And each case requires a unanimous verdict from the jury to continue moving along the process towards that death penalty decision. So, at least in Arkansas, I know it does have a lot to do with, it does hinge a lot on the jury. I'm not so sure about Georgia, because I think each state is allowed to choose how they come to a death penalty conviction in and of themselves. So I'm not sure on Georgia, but I mean, yeah, absolutely. It comes down to the jury. I think there's enough in here, though, with, like you said, text message records, them being told to stop. I think there's enough here to prove premeditation. Once again, I think that's just overwhelming. And these two gentlemen, the father and the son, are definitely, in my opinion, going to be candidates for the needle. But we'll see how it plays out. Never wish death upon anybody, but, you know, the good Lord may look the other way for this one on me. Okay. So this next one, me and you are going to kind of disagree on, but we're on the same side at the same time. It was kind of funny talking to you about this next one whenever we were before we came on the air, because we're on the same side, but at the same time, we're kind of disagreeing a little bit. So the FDA, it came out last week, is looking to ban menthol cigarettes. And we have a story from CNBC television on this.
Well, the FDA announced today it's moving forward with a plan to ban menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars. The Surgeon General says the move is an important step to saving lives.
While some of the numbers have improved, we still have millions of children in our country who are using these tobacco products. And flavors are a critical reason why. The burden of the harm really falls upon communities of color, upon LGBTQ individuals, and among the poor.
For decades, tobacco companies have aggressively marketed menthol cigarettes to African Americans in particular. The majority of black smokers use menthol, and the CDC reports black men have the highest rates of lung cancer in the nation. Keep in mind, today's announcement is just the first in a long process to actually get the products off the market. The FDA reports it plans to propose the new regulations next year, but will likely face legal challenges from tobacco companies.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.
Shepard, go to hell. I love how I beat up on Shepard Smith. No. For real, though, looking at this, so the first thing they said was, you know, they obviously reached out to the black man. The black man is exponentially going to smoke menthol cigarettes more than anybody. We're doing this for the black man. BS. I said this earlier. What's the next thing we're going to do? Ban McDonald's and all fast food restaurants because obesity is an epidemic in this country? I think this is a reach by the federal government. I think it's absolutely asinine. And I think, like he said, you know, it's going to face a ton of legal, you know, hurdles that it's going to have to face. It's going to have to jump to before we can even say that this is possibly going to happen.
In 2009, they had drafted a ban on flavored cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
They were told to drop the menthol cigarettes from that bill and continued forward, and it passed. Part of the law that the FDA would the FDA had the authority to regulate tobacco. Congress banned all flavors in e-cigarettes except menthol and directed the FDA to study the issue. During the remaining years of the Obama administration, the agency and its outside advisors found that banning menthol cigarettes would improve public health and save lives, but the administration never moved forward. So you're looking at the first black president that was originally pushing to ban menthol cigarettes. So it cracks me up when they try to spin it as
a black issue.
Yeah, that they're targeting black people. So that
What's funny is I think that black man. What's funny is I think that black man smoked menthol cigarettes too. I could be wrong on that. I know he smoked, but I think he smoked menthol cigarettes too.
So it's just kind of funny to me the way the media tries to spin it.
Yeah, and I mean you could almost see this coming where they especially because they specifically called out menthol cigarettes. Real quick, Nessa says, why just menthol cigarettes and why the flavored cigars versus all cigarettes and all cigars? For the black man, I call bullshit. And once again, absolutely.
And I'm in the same boat in the line of thinking on that. Cigarettes are known to cause cancer. So why do we continue to have asbestos? Was known to cause cancer, and what they do?
They banned it.
They got rid of it.
Right.
There are so many regulations you have to go through and things you have to do if you're doing construction in a building that has asbestos.
Mm-hmm. I was about to say, I know that they
actively selling to consumers a product that is known to cause cancer.
Right. And you know, I think actually a lot of buildings now, they require them. And actually, this probably happened before I was born because I think the ban went into effect before I was born. But they required them to come in and take out all of that asbestos and things like that. Same with lead paint, too.
Yeah.
If you have lead paint, they have to disclose that lead paint was used. Nessa goes on to say, this goes into what I was saying last week about the system feeding into racism. I would agree in this case. This is nothing but the system saying, hey, we're doing this for the black man. No, you're not. You're just doing this because you want to ban menthol cigarettes. Like, I would appreciate them if they came out and forthright just said, hey, we're going to do this for the health effects. I would still say, you know, what are we going to ban next? McDonald's. I would still say that because I think that at the end of the day, with those little warning signs, if you still pick up a pack of cigarettes, you know the risks that you're taking. You shouldn't be out there making personal decisions for people. But at the same time, I would respect them a little bit more if they just were honest about it and said, hey, we're making personal health decisions for you.
But then you got to look at how far things are going to go. When this country tried to ban alcohol.
Right. Speakeasies.
You know, is that going to be the same way with cigarettes?
You would hope not.
I'm just saying, you know.
We're gonna, instead of having whiskey drivers, we're gonna have cigarette drivers.
Yeah, cigarette runners. Now the crazy thing is, you may actually see a turnaround of people trying to pass off their cigarettes as marijuana.
Oh, true. Oh man, no, that's just a joint. Can't you smell it?
But yeah, I don't know how feasible it is to ban it in that manner, and I think people are looking at this whole ban in a light that it's not meant to. Basically, the ban would forbid companies to manufacture them.
Right.
It's not like they're going to be out searching people's cigarettes to see what they've got in their carton.
Hey, that's a green pack.
That's the way the media is trying to spin it. They're after the black man.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case.
Absolutely. And it's funny. I actually shared something without thinking about that this weekend in the group chat. And then I woke up to see Manny with the response. And I'm just like, wait, why the hell did I share that? Nessa says it's a distraction tactic, like I always say. They do it to keep us divided because the day people of a nation unite harmoniously is the day the government is in trouble. I would absolutely agree on the distraction tactic. What are they doing? I mean, are we distracting the fact that they don't get shit done any other day up there in Washington? Like, what are we getting distracted from, though, is my question, because they're not doing nothing. They're sitting there twiddling their thumbs, in my opinion. But, hey, it is what it is. But no, I think it comes down to, these people are making a decision to smoke cigarettes, vape, drink, all that good stuff. And they know the effects, and they know the potential, for cancer-causing agents, yada, yada, yada. And they still continue to do it. So they're making a conscious choice.
I think the original push was said to make it less tempting to teens and younger people.
Right.
That the flavored tobacco tends to attract teens and younger people to smoking.
Which, I mean, we talked about earlier about the cigars that people tend to use for other things besides the tobacco. And I was laughing. I was like, dude, that's not even why people use those. It's got nothing to do with putting it to a child. It's got more to do with they wanted a flavored something when they're smoking their weed.
Right.
Nessa says yes, yeah, but in a few days when this is all over, there will be some new bill that's passed or something. Hey, maybe it'll be Omar's police accountability legislation. I maybe we'll get.
And like I said, according to this article from the Washington Post, in 2009, Congress banned all flavors in cigarettes.
Which is interesting to me. Which is definitely interesting to me. It's interesting, especially when you said that they were told to take menthol out. The other thing that's interesting to me about this, though, is Philip Morris has been on record as saying that they don't see cigarettes, standard cigarettes, as the future of the business. They actually see e-juice and vaping products as the future of the tobacco and nicotine industry. So I'm wondering how much big tobacco is actually going to fight this bill. If they actually do see vaping and nicotine juice as the future of their companies.
Right. In June, the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council and another anti-tobacco group, Action on Smoking and Health, sued the FDA for not responding to the citizens' petition. Let me go back to the citizens' petition. All right, so it talks about the Obama administration talking about it, but never moved forward. In 2013, several groups filed a citizens petition requesting a menthol cigarette ban, including the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council, the American Lung Association, the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, and an organization now named the Center for Black Health and Equity. During the Trump administration, that momentum for the prohibition appeared to pick up. The commissioner of the FDA at the time said it would propose a menthol ban, but subsequently left the agency. Then it goes to, in June, they tried to sue the FDA. Those groups tried to sue the FDA for not responding to the citizens' petition. They were joined in a lawsuit by the American Medical Association and the National Medical Association. The FDA agreed to respond to the petition by April 29th. And now here we are responding with a possible
on May 3rd, right? So I mean, and that's the thing, you know, this is going to be something. Like Nessa says here in this comment, she says they tried to ban flavored vapes already and all that already. I feel like it's one of those things that don't get your panties in the water yet. It probably won't happen, just because there are so many lobbying firms and stuff for big tobacco that, you know, if they decide to fight it, more than likely it'll die.
Well, what I find interesting is a lot of this seems to be pushed by black leadership groups.
I do notice that. That's interesting. That is interesting. You know, maybe they are trying to, you know, help some issues that are currently killing their constituents in their group. You know, maybe that is something that they're trying to help curb that spread, so to speak. A term we've used way too much over the past year, but yeah, maybe they're trying to help things out. I don't know, but I don't see this one going through without a lot of fight. Yeah. Okay, so next up we have Biden's tax hikes always causing issues. And I actually have a story from CNBC television where they're talking with Jim Cramer. I like this guy. This guy's big on stocks and bonds and all that. He gives stock advice. They're actually talking with him about what things will look like post-Biden tax policy.
Now that the COVID relief package has become law, sources tell Bloomberg the president is planning the first major federal tax hike since 1993, aimed at funding long-term recovery programs. Yesterday on ABC's This Week, the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, was asked about the call for a wealth tax. Here's what she said.
President Biden has put forward a number of proposals. He hasn't proposed a wealth tax, but he has proposed that corporations and wealthy individuals should pay more in order to meet the needs of the economy, the spending we need to do. And over time, I expect that we will be putting forth proposals to get deficits under control.
But no wealth tax?
Well, that's something that we haven't decided yet and can look at. But, President Biden during the campaign proposed a higher tax rate on corporations, on individuals, and on payments, capital gains and dividend payments that are received. And those are alternatives that address that are similar in their impact to a wealth tax.
Jim, so they are talking about corporate tax back up to 28, paring back some benefits for pass-throughs. The capital gains tax rate would go higher for those with incomes of $1 million or more.
Look, I think that those of us who've seen what it's meant to corporate America to have those rates reduced know that part of this stock movements came directly from that. I know lower interest rates, obviously. But the idea that capital gains and dividends could be taxed like ordinary income, I think a lot of Americans just feel these are huge breaks for the rich. I'd like to think that it's not the case. I'd like to think that there are many people who are participating in stocks. But we know, David, that that's just not the case. So capital gains and dividends, if they went to ordinary income, and I don't want that to happen, but if it happened, it would raise a lot of money. And it would certainly raise a lot of money before it happened, as people would rush to do it.
Right, and you're saying people would rush to sell
Yes.
at the current rate.
Yeah.
The question always becomes, Carl, on all these things, like what does the math look like in the Senate in particular, and what can you really get through there? Obviously, the relief bill was done under reconciliation. Could you do a tax bill in that same way? And then what about infrastructure? It just becomes very much unclear exactly what they're going to be able to accomplish with a 50-50 split right now, and certainly moderates such as Joe Manchin having such influence.
Indeed. I mean, and Goldman, with a note over the weekend, guys, looking at proposals, at least, of infrastructure of $2 trillion, maybe $4 trillion, depending on what the White House decides to put in there.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching.
So Jim said something interesting there to me. He said that, wrong headline. Jim said something interesting to me there. He said that taxing the rich would gain the necessary income to, number one, pay back the stimulus, if I understood him correctly. Number one, pay back the stimulus. And number two, pay for this infrastructure that the Democrats are asking for. I am not necessarily against a income tax increase for the wealthy, or a wealth tax as they labeled it there. I think that, if I pay 10% and my 10% is 10,000 and their 10% is like, 20,000, but it basically is like 2,000 to them, I think that's a little bit unfair. You know what I mean? So right. I think that they should feel taxes just like the rest of us, and dread tax day just like the rest of us. But I think that there are times where you go too far. What did you think about Kramer's response there to the question, though, saying that, number one, it would indeed create enough money to fund all of these things, but also number two, that it would also you would see this rush of people getting out of the stock market and selling as quickly as possible so they wouldn't be hit by this?
People are always going to look for a loophole to get out of paying taxes on any amount that they can. I mean, at the end of the day, it is about trying to save as much money in your pocket as you can. So, yeah, I definitely see stuff like that. One of the things they're not talking about, I saw one article that says that this is going to hit people who sell homes. So, I mean, are they looking at just specific homes or any home?
Well, and it's interesting. You sent that story earlier about how people, who do make under $400K are going to feel the squeeze from this tax hike. And you're right. People who sell homes, I'm sure a good 60, 70, maybe even 80% of people who sell their homes probably are making more than $400K a year. So they're going to feel the squeeze on it. People who, are lucky enough to play the stock market and understand all of that, who may not make $400K a year, they just play around with it, are going to feel the squeeze on this. It's just they make it a feel-good measure, in my opinion, for the people who don't want to play the stock market or don't want to do any of these extra things. They just have their standard income. I think that's where they think the feel-good measure comes in, is they can guarantee those people who just have one income and it's just their job, they can make those people feel good if they make less than $400K.
Right.
But,
But you got them looking at combining for families, husband, wife, or husband, or wife, depending on what state you live in. You're looking at couples being taxed at a different level.
Really? Now I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
That's a little rough, especially like I would think. I've always been told you file married filing separately on the same return, or married filing separately on different returns. I've heard you're pretty much an idiot if you file jointly, because you're going to be taxed at a higher rate. How could they apply this unless you're filing jointly? Because you're separating your income.
That I don't know.
That would be.
We got to remember, all this is still in the proposal stage, so nothing is definite or concrete yet.
Right. That would just seem very, very difficult, in my opinion, to accomplish that, just because if you are filing separately, you're separating your income. That could be something crazy to me. What do you think, though, as far as the proposals we've seen? Do you think that it is the best way to go to pay back this $1 trillion stimulus, or this, trillions of dollars worth of infrastructure that the Democrats want?
I think it's a decent step. I don't think that higher corporate taxes are a good idea, because all you're going to do is push corporations out of the United States.
Right.
I really think Trump was onto something with what he was doing with the whatchamacallit he was putting in place.
Tax breaks?
No. Charging people for overseas.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. It's not a tax incentive. It's a detriment, basically. Yes.
Yes, I can't think of the name of it. But
yeah, me neither.
If you were having to pay as much or close to as much for something that was made overseas as you are something that was made here in the United States, more people would start buying stuff from the United States.
Absolutely. I would agree on that.
I'm thinking by having those embargoes in place that you would get a lot more tax dollars.
So one thing I've thought of, why are they trying to tax the corporations when we know that's going to cause the corporations to outsource? Why are we not taxing just the CEOs and the board members of those corporations instead of, they can't throw their money out of the country, but they can throw their company out of the country. You know what I mean?
Right.
Why are we trying to tax the company and not the...
That's a very good question.
Bush would give these corporate tax breaks, but he would never tax the rich either. Why not tax the wealthy individual, but not harm their business? I feel like that would be a little bit more of a closer step to something that we could bargain if we did something like that. Actually taxing the individuals instead of hurting the business.
And I've always thought that, why isn't there a specific percentage across the board? This is your income. You pay X percent, regardless of if you make $1 or you make $25 million.
So you're talking about a flat tax, like
flat tax, yes,
like Cruz wanted.
Did he want that?
I believe that was one of his platforms, was he wanted to introduce a flat tax, which, I mean, like you said, 10% would hit them a little bit of a larger number than 10% would hit me, for example.
Right.
And, that could work. I don't necessarily hate the idea of a flat flat tax across the board. I can understand that the opponents of it would spin it to be, oh, they're still not paying more. They're still paying the 10%. They would focus on not the dollar value, but the percentage you're paying in. So, you know, who knows? I feel like taxes and stuff like this is one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't scenarios. Republicans want to let them get away with everything. Democrats want to give them a tight leash. Checks and balances, people. Checks and balances.
Right. Now, I mean, there's other things like your sales taxes. I have never understood why, if a resale shop is selling something that was purchased originally and taxed, and then they get their hands on, like Salvation Army. You have people that donate stuff, yet when they sell it, they apply another sales tax.
Do they really? I never knew that. I thought they were like a 501(c), so they didn't have to worry about taxes. I'll be damned.
They don't have to worry about paying taxes. But when you buy something out of one of their stores, they still charge you a sales tax.
Okay. I never knew that. I'll be damned. Okay.
A used car, when it is purchased brand new, you pay taxes on it.
Too, yeah.
When you go and buy it used, you still have to pay taxes on it.
Why are you doubling up taxes? True. I see your point. Okay. Speaking of the IRS and taxes, the IRS records are indicating that the Democrats are now the party of the wealthy in this country. I just can't help but kind of laugh at this. This is something that if you don't think all of them sumbitches in Washington and even here in Little Rock are wealthier than you and I will ever be in our lifetime, you're probably crazy. I mean, let's be honest. AOC talks about how she was homeless at one point, or she was really at the poverty line. Bro, you ain't seen impoverished in probably 10 to 15 years. I mean, and that's why sometimes whenever people like Bernie Sanders gets on the TV and starts saying, "Oh, I can identify with the people that are poor. I had this situation happen when I was a child. I had to watch my mother deal with this." You didn't personally go through it, number one. Number two, you're like 60 years old. You can't remember what you had for breakfast. Come on. So, I mean, really, I can't even deal with this right now as far as this goes. It doesn't surprise me. Democrats, I think a lot of this has to probably do with donations. I think there was a surge in donations due to COVID and due to the fact that people just wanted rid of Donald Trump. I think there was a surge of donations to the Democratic Party, and that's probably a key indicator as to why they have more money on their side now.
Yeah, I would be interested in to actually look at the records that they are looking at. Because if it is based on this donation thing, you've got to wonder where those donations came from. I mean, I'm pretty sure it wasn't, Johnny down the street.
Yeah.
You're looking at major companies that was pushing money into the Democratic.
Well, and of course,
party.
We'll never see that for Democrat or Republican or hell, even independent. We never see their donor list. Come on now.
Right.
Are you kidding me? They'd have a lot more questions to answer then. They don't want none of that. They want absolutely none of that. But what are your thoughts here on the Democrats being the party of the wealth? Do you think that they're going to switch up their stance now?
No, I don't see them changing anything. Democrats are still going to push that they are the
People's
party of the people.
Yeah. And they're still going to play. They're still, unfortunately, going to play racial politics to their undoing. And, it's going to be a vicious cycle that neither Republicans nor Democrats learn from.
Right.
Okay, y'all. Here we go.
As long as we have career politicians, that'll never change.
I would agree with that statement.
We've got to get term limits.
We absolutely do. I mean, there are so many people up there that are so. I swear, Washington is a bubble in that, like, you become disenfranchised with the normal working class person as soon as you get there. You forget what you came from, and it's unfortunate that people have been there 30, 40 years, and they don't know how anybody else is living outside of that bubble. So,
yeah.
It is what it is. Okay, American Idiot of the Week. This week, mine's going to be Duggar, the gentleman who is for the, I believe, second or third time arrested over the weekend for child pornography charges. This gentleman is from the city that I am from, Springdale. We absolutely despise the Duggars, and they give our city and town a bad name, and shame on them. And yeah, I mean, how do you get caught with child porn like 3 times? I thought they took your computer away after the first time. Like, how do you?
Yeah, but if you have that stuff saved to a flash drive,
I mean, are you giving the blueprint on how to get away with this?
I just know I have files from back, during the LimeWire days.
Oh my goodness, LimeWire. I remember seeing a meme not too long ago that said, remember when you had to give your computer AIDS just to get the new songs? Oh, man. I love that. I love that stuff. But
yeah, I didn't realize that about the Duggars. Which one is that?
I believe.
Is it one of the children or is it the father?
No, it's one of the children. I believe it may be Josh. Hold on. I will tell you in just a second. Josh Duggar, yes.
Man, that's crazy.
He was actually arrested by U.S. Marshals, too, so the federal government ain't messing around with him this time.
How old is he?
He's got to be young. I want to say he's about my age. I mean, I say young. I'm 30. Hold on, let me see here. He was born in 88, so he's 2 years older than me. He's 33.
Okay.
And actually, give me 1 second here, and I will flash his new mugshot up on the screen for you so we can laugh at him.
Where was he at in the pecking order of children? Because then they have like 50.
That's right. I am not sure where he was in that pecking order, actually. Hold on. Save images. Save. Okay, there we go. Now I got it. Yeah, just wait till you see this picture, though. It's hilarious. But no, I think he was somewhere in the middle, honestly. Their kids are all getting a little bit up there in age because I remember in 2008 we went to interview them and they already had their 12. So they've got to be at least close to 18, even the younger ones. Oh, there he is, right up there to the top right. I changed my logo. Oh yeah. That's Mr. Duggar. He looks so pleased with himself.
It just makes you wonder, how much of that he picked up from the house.
That's crazy to me. It's not necessarily Raven. Actually, she says he's one of the boys and he was the oldest. It's actually interesting to me you say that because I remember when we went to interview him when I was a senior, they have a situation where like each kid has a buddy. And the older buddy takes care of the younger buddy, so that the parents really don't have to do much. It may be something that he didn't get the parenting he needed when he was a young child.
You got to look at how old was the younger buddy that he had when he was going, 12, 13, 14 years old, whenever you start getting that sexual awareness.
Right. And actually, I think it may have been Josh, but I believe one of them was arrested or one of them got accused of sexual assault. And it may have been Josh. But yeah.
Man.
Craziness. Okay, who's your American Idiot of the Week this week, Manny?
You ready for it?
I'm ready for it. Who are we sponsored by?
I always seem to shock you with mine. So.
Okay.
Honeybee Products. Go on our Facebook page. You'll find a link for a Honeybee. I use their Lemonade. I use their Roll-On. Very fantastic products. Helps with pain. Eases aches. I referee basketball games, so I'm up and down the court a lot. I use a lot of it on my knees. My goodness.
Oof.
I'm getting old. 44. So, yeah. My American Idiot of the Week is Idaho Deputy Marshal Nate Sylvester.
Okay, what did Nate do?
Okay, old Nate decided he was going to make a TikTok video.
Oh, no.
Where he was pretending that he was talking to LeBron James, asking him for advice on a knife-wielding attacker.
Uh-huh.
And he actually says the words, quote, "So you don't care if a black person kills another black person, but you do care if a white cop kills a black person, even if he's saving the life of another black person." TikTok.
TikTok will get you every single time.
Yeah. I mean, he said other things. I ran out of room where I was writing that, so I just left it at that. But yeah, he
oh my,
he killed his career right there, to say the least.
Yeah, just slightly, slightly.
So
that's a cringeworthy moment right there.
Yeah, I encourage y'all to look him up, Nate Sylvester.
Yes, please.
Idaho Deputy Marshal.
If y'all can send me, go ahead and tag me on Facebook in this TikTok, because I so want to see this now. I've got to look this shit up. Oh my goodness. Oh. People never cease to amaze me, Manny. Well, that's pretty much everything we got. We managed to do an hour and a half. I thought we were blowing through these. We managed to do about an hour and a half. Is there anything else you got for us tonight?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, awesome. Well, for the Manny Hispani, I am Money Mike, and we will see you guys next week for more American Idiots.
That I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.